Well, Kevin, I think we're getting to the point now. I think we can get started. I know we just have about 16 attendees so far, but um, why don't we go ahead and kick off if you're okay with that?
Yep, that's fine.
Awesome. So fantastic. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning or this afternoon. My name is Ryan Lounsbury. I'll be one of the co-presenters here, helping guide you through our webinar. Specifically how M&T Bank is rapidly expanding the Now platform with ServiceNow Impact. So what we'll do here is we're going to go ahead and get started. Let me go ahead and share our safe harbor. So just want you folks to know that, we don't plan on sharing any forward-thinking innovation that we have not deployed yet, but just in case, here's our safe harbor. And before we get started, a couple little housekeeping items for us. So please ask questions throughout the webinar. What we'll do is we'll collect those so that we can cover those during our Q&A session towards the end of the webinar. This will be recorded and we will be posting this into our ServiceNow Impact community forum so that if you wanted to share this with other colleagues who couldn't attend today, or you want to reflect back on today's discussion, we'll make that available to you. Yes, and also too, within the forum, we're looking to build out as we move into Q3, more engaging content for all of our Impact customers, specifically around entitlements that drive our clients' adoption of the Now platform, leveraging ServiceNow Impact. And then at the end, please, we'd love your feedback. We want to make sure that you are getting exactly what you expected when you registered for this webinar. And I'll just give a quick plug for future webinars that we have coming up in the next 2 months. We'll be also presenting a session on Northwestern Mutual as well as Accenture. So stay tuned for those webinar invites coming out here shortly. All right, Kevin, why don't we go ahead and get started? So again, for those that are just trickling in, my name is Ryan Lounsbury. I'm the Director of Outbound Product Management for ServiceNow Impact. I'm based here in San Diego, California. Been with ServiceNow for a little over 3 years, but I've been in technology for the past 22 years of my career. And I'm accompanied by our esteemed customer here, M&T Bank. Kevin, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kevin Conable. I'm Senior Vice President of Service Delivery Engineering for M&T Bank. I just want to say I'm on the edge of probably losing my voice, so I'll do the best that I can to kind of power through this, but hope to share some good information on our experience with Impact coming up on a year, and share some good ideas and some of our experiences and challenges along the way.
Thank you so much, Kevin. And by the way, your voice is coming through just fine. So so no worries at all. So before we get started, team, I think it makes a lot of sense that we introduce you to what ServiceNow Impact is. And what I'll do is I'll walk through a bit of a product tour for about 5 minutes so that you can actually see the product. But our main principle here with ServiceNow Impact is to maximize the value that our customers receive from their investment in ServiceNow by delivering post-sale experiences that help our customers get to that value they need in a shorter period of time. We're delivering premium support experiences through our product, like developer support, accelerated response times for P1s and P2s, and of course, 24/7. And also a self-service monitoring tool powered by Impact that allows you to monitor platform health in a proactive way, where our customers were not able to do that in the past. We're actually empowering them to do that. But our premium support offering does not stop there. We provide our customers access to what we call the Impact Squad. That Impact Squad is your team of experts that are going to help drive strategy as well as platform health for your organization. We're also going to give you access to experts on demand beyond the Impact Squad to help you in your time of need with deep domain expertise on specific capabilities within the Now platform to help you really get the value you need to drive true business change. And our premium support offering doesn't just stop there. It also includes all you can consume on-demand training and certification for your staff. And we deliver this all through our groundbreaking product that I'm going to introduce to you right now. So let me go ahead I want to bounce out of the PowerPoint for a second. ServiceNow Impact is our product that we brought to market in January of 2022. And what we are doing is helping platform owners like Kevin and other platform owners like Jackie here in my particular example, who runs the platform for a company called Scale Right Technologies. And in order for Jackie, the platform owner, to be able to successfully execute on the vision of her CIO on a customer experience digital transformation, she needs a personalized experience that's going to allow her to capture her CIO's vision, specifically the business objectives, the outcomes that we need to achieve, as well as success metrics that we'll use as a progress bar on the success of each of these initiatives, and be able to capture that in a product so that we can then inform Jackie on the best next action for her from a training perspective, maybe an advisory session, right? And be able to do that through our groundbreaking product. And you're seeing right here, Jackie, when she logs into Impact, she has personalized key activities that she needs to execute on that is being recommended by her Impact Squad. This is our personalized team that I mentioned before that are strategic and technical in nature, that are going to help and guide Jackie through each step of her digital transformation as it relates to the customer experience that she's looking to improve upon. When Jackie scrolls down, she sees her personalized business objectives. This is exactly where she has captured her CIO's vision on how the CIO wants to maximize their investment in ServiceNow. And you can see that Jackie's heading up multiple different transformations across her organization. And to give you further insight into what this looks like, she has that vision mapped out in a value blueprint. And this is essentially a part where in the first 60 to 90 days of Jackie's experience with ServiceNow Impact, we are collecting this information to create a North Star for our transformation so that we know exactly what steps we need to take to achieve specific outcomes. And you can see here, we're capturing what those operation outcomes are going to be, what are the success metrics that we're going to use to measure the efficacy of our efforts. And once we know how Jackie and her CIO want to maximize their investment and basically have a business discussion, we then turn it into a technology discussion where we are now providing Jackie clear visibility into all of the entitlements that she owns here with ServiceNow across every one of the workflows. Now, because we're talking about a customer service digital transformation, the Impact Squad will sit down with Jackie and make recommendations on product capabilities that she owns that can fuel this customer service experience. Specifically, her CIO, Lara Povey, wants to drive fierce customer loyalty. And as we all know here on the line, in order to do that, self-service needs to be an easy experience for customers. So the Impact Squad will make recommendations around self-service capabilities around like a chat bot or things of that nature in order to drive the success of that initiative. Once we've mapped the vision to product capabilities that Jackie owns, then we can lay this out in a transformational phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So when Jackie sits down with her executive and says, this is how I'm going to maximize your investment in ServiceNow, she has a product that can show the executive exactly how this is being done. Prior to this, Jackie would have to pull together PowerPoints that are very static and don't change at all in nature. And it's very difficult to collect all the data to really inform Lara on exactly how she's going ahead and moving forward with this transformation. Impact makes it easy, not only for Jackie to present this investment, but also for Lara to be able to track a progress bar on exactly how well they're faring. And I'll show you exactly where we are collecting that data. But because we're building in the personalization of what we know about our customer from the value blueprint, the capabilities map, the product adoption roadmap, our recommendation engine now can provide recommendations to Jackie and her team on what best next action they need to take to really move the needle on making progress on these initiatives. Is it tapping into the Impact Accelerator catalog where Jackie can get, it's a virtual agent specialist to come in for a couple sessions and teach her team how to wire up a virtual agent? Or is it a training that she needs to take because we know that she's about to take on a specific capability let's recommend to Jackie and her team that they need to be enabled on these capabilities through this on-demand training and certification. Now, I mentioned before, we're tracking the progress as like a progress bar-like experience through Impact by looking at those operational outcomes. So across each one of the digital transformations that I shared earlier from the business, from the value blueprint, you can see these metrics, right? Net promoter score, customer effort score, right? We are setting a goal and we're providing the progress on that goal. So when Laura, who asked Jackie some pretty tough questions along the way, Jackie with ease can respond to those questions with confidence. Now, we talked about a lot of different things around impact, and I want to just level set here. Under the benefits and usage page, we're providing Jackie clear visibility into what exactly she owns when it comes to impact. Our goal is if we can get our customers like Jackie and Kevin to leverage as much of ServiceNow Impact as possible, that is going to drive adoption within the Now platform. So as I talked about before, we covered pretty much the Impact Core, which is the digital experience in the squad. We also talked about experts on demand. Well, of course, we have the Impact Squad as the experts that are going to be aligned to like Kevin or Jackie, but also too, we provide access to domain experts that used to be deep within inside our organization. Now we've built a systematic way to bring these experts to the front line and help our customers in an episodic need. As I mentioned before, our customers at times have difficulty standing up core components that really drive true business change. So our customers will walk them through how to stand up a virtual agent. After 6 months of using that virtual agent, we'll teach them how to optimize that virtual agent experience as well. Going back to the benefits page real quick. As I mentioned before, on-demand training and certification is also provided to all of our customers who are Impact subscribers, and then enhanced support, 24/7 developer support. For the first time ever, we are providing custom code reviews to our clients who are writing code. Of course, we want to make sure our customers are leveraging out-of-the-box experiences as much as possible, but there are times where custom code makes a lot of sense. We have a developer support team that will actually look at that code, not hands-on keyboard, but look at that code and advise on how to make that code healthy and high-performing. And last but not least, you cannot drive innovation with ServiceNow unless your platform is in a healthy posture. And so we know that. And what we do is we're not only providing you health scan information about how the platform is performing, but also to Instance Observer. Allows you to monitor your production instances in a proactive way and set up alerts. If key conditions are breached, you and your team are notified before your end users know there's a problem. And so that at the end of the day, we are trying to provide our customers everything they need in their post-sale experience to be hyper successful when it comes to maximizing their investment in ServiceNow. So please take a look at us on our .com for further information. And also to reach out to your account executive here at ServiceNow. They can set up a product tour and we can walk you through in a much more detailed experience personalized to you and your company. So let's go back and get back to the webinar now that we've level set on what impact is, the value that our customers are receiving. I think it makes a lot of sense now for us to actually hear from our customer, Kevin, here at M&T Bank. But before I pass the controls to Kevin, this is what we're going to talk about for the next 20 minutes or so. So before Kevin and team became Impact customers, they had some challenges. First and foremost, they wanted to make the user experience seamless. They wanted to make it also one that they felt that they could adopt, that can help them be smarter, faster, better at their jobs. Kevin also was hyper-focused on automation. Wherever we can automate, we need to do it. And we need to make this simple. However, the challenges that Kevin and team faced is that they kept on seeing more and more demand on their team to drive further and further innovation. However, as we all know, as we expand our footprint within a platform, going from one entitlement to maybe 4 or 5 entitlements here at ServiceNow, it becomes more complex. And then sometimes our customers don't have that knowledge on how to manage that complexity. And speaking of that, they lacked a solid governance and federated model. And so that's what Kevin and team, when they were looking at Impact, they saw the value in what we were able to deliver. With the capabilities that we identified here, Kevin will walk through these in his presentation, but the value that he and his company is seeing, they have over 50 of their employees leveraging Impact resources today. Again, if you leverage Impact resources, you're driving innovation on your ServiceNow platform. And they've also been able to consolidate multiple different work streams and applications into one governance model that is helping them scale their efforts. Again, the value here is if we do not have a governance model that is focused in one direction, you tend to get distracted with shiny objects that all of a sudden have you running in a couple different directions. So without further ado, Kevin, I'm going to pass you the controls, and I will actually run the slides for you if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's fine, Ryan. Thanks for the intro. And I appreciate the invite here. I agreed to kind of speak to our experience with Impact, primarily because it's been a very positive one. For me, it's not about sales, it's about operations. And a little background, I'm fairly new with the bank, less than a year. We renewed our contract with ServiceNow last fall. And as part of that contract renewal, we really went from an a la carte licensing model to kind of, bundled packages, right? With ITSM Pro, with ITOM Pro, upgrade from our customer service, the CSM module, to FSO, to financial services operations. And then really at the 11th hour, we added the Impact program. So I wanted to tell that quick story. I'll tell more about it as we go into some of these slides. Some of the slides that we're going to cover here, the what is our vision, what originally was our vision that brought us into Impact, why did we decide to add Impact, which is a pretty interesting story, the who our primary stakeholders are, what kinds of technologies have we implemented, what modules do we have in place with ServiceNow, and then the next part is opportunities. We still have tons of opportunities that we've identified as part of the Impact program. Okay, as Ryan alluded to, there were three kind of governing principles that we started with: simplicity, a little background on M&T and our ServiceNow experience. We're about 6+ years into our implementation. Like many companies, my background also, I have about 12 years managing ServiceNow teams. I've got about 28 years in IT, some years prior to that in engineering. Most of my background has been in infrastructure, so I've managed kind of infrastructure and operations teams, everything from service desk all the way through the back-end infrastructure, both premise, private cloud, and public cloud. And ServiceNow has always been part of the portfolio. My teams now also are referred to as service delivery engineering. So I have all enablement teams here at the bank. So the ServiceNow platform, I have a performance testing and analytics team, as well as enterprise monitoring across all of our, we refer to as our command center. So these three principles really applied. We wanted simplicity. We wanted to improve the user experience, which is always a difficult thing with many different stakeholders, and continue to increase our automation. And I'll kind of touch on the automation as we go forward, because we've done quite a bit. We've got a cloud first kind of strategy right now too, that where some of this automation plays into our cloud tools. Okay, next slide.
Yep, got
it. Three kind of overarching principles: modernize. We wanted to modernize the employee and customer experience. We've got a lot of different tools. We have Salesforce. We've got a decent pocket of Salesforce here at the bank as well. So as we're looking at application development and kind of DevOps platforms, both ServiceNow and Salesforce, and some capabilities or in some areas like business lines compete with each other. But we want to continue to improve that experience to prove ServiceNow as a good platform. Retire and replace legacy systems not built for digital services. This is always an ongoing struggle. As I mentioned, we've got a cloud-first strategy here at M&T. been in place for a couple of years, but we really are only solid into it, I would say, in the last probably 10 months. We've started migrating some of our applications. And by the way, everything from, lowest RTO to highest RTO, RPO range around 1,800 applications. So we've just started this migration to Azure. We're going to have a multi-cloud strategy. And so there's a lot of decom, retirement, replace of legacy systems, and then also provide solutions for compliance and regulatory requirements, which is a very big thing in banking and financial services. Digitize, automate, work, replace, replacing manual intervention. In our service catalog team, which I think there's another slide that I'll speak to in a little bit, we're doing about 1,500 automated requests today. Represents about 20% of our total number of requests that come in today. So there's very good improvements, I would say, across the automation front in the area of service catalog. Gain efficiencies by providing the ability to track work and resolutions, collaborative and transparent solutions for customers, single pane of glass, right? Single pane view we wanted to do, and consolidate systems and data platforms across different processes. So next slide. This slide represents some of the growth that we have in kind of three primary areas. If we take ITSM, which is the green bar, we've seen, since we started, and this only goes back to 2019, the platform, this data is only, for the last 3 to 4 years. We've got about 6 years, so there's actually some improvement there. ITSM tends to be somewhat flat. We spent the first couple of years with the platform really just maturing those service management, incident problem change, release, those processes. We're now trying to move some of those into CI/CD pipelines, especially as we move into the cloud. So we're looking at tools like DevOps Change Velocity and others from ServiceNow that would integrate with Jenkins and some of our other Jira and other development tools that we have to streamline that process, particularly around standard changes moving into normal changes. We've got a big growth really in the service catalog area, the white bar. So it's kind of interesting because it looks like it flattened out from 20 to 21. Not sure really. I think the pandemic was a big impact to the bank. We had everybody going remote. Automation tended to slow a bit, even though we wanted to do more automation. It didn't really pick up until 21. And this only shows through 2022. It's an even higher spike now as we look at improvements in automation across our service catalog requests. There's a ton that we're doing with Ansible playbooks and Terraform and things in the cloud that integrate all those workflows from get it requests end to end, all the way through provisioning infrastructure, making changes, through to self-healing. Our next area is how do we move into the self-healing initiated through ServiceNow. And then probably the biggest spike are all of our business lines. So EBS is our enterprise business services. I have a manager. As a matter of fact, each of these lines, I have a manager over each of those specific areas. The green area being the platform team, the white area being service catalog, and the blue area being EBS. EBS, we have today about 31 applications, customer-facing applications built on the ServiceNow platform. 28 of those were originally built on CSM with the App Engine that we started back in 2019. And then most recently with FSO. So we've got about 5 or 6 in the pipeline right now that will all be built on the FSO module. But as you can see, there's a huge spike, and that spike is actually even going to go higher and higher. So we're almost up to a caseload of almost 700,000 cases. It's really showing its value to the point where this is where I can speak more to the Impact program and our struggles and challenges along the way.
So Kevin, I guess the theme here is growth is happening at a rapid rate for you
Yeah,
and the bank. Yeah.
it really is, and it varies by module. That's why I think it's important to show these different, kind of work streams and how things have grown. But the adoption overall is always a struggle. I'm sure most of the people on this call know that half of the battle is getting the business to buy in on the platform. And you've got to go through the ITSM phases of showing value for incident, problem, and health status, right, to your service desk or, NOC or command center. Once you do that, though, then a lot of these other modules come into play as ServiceNow as an ecosystem. So talking about why impact, capacity challenges, we just talked about that increased demand across the platform portfolios. 6 years now into our implementation, we've got a lot of people coming at our door and knocking on the door and saying, hey, can we evaluate other modules in ServiceNow? We've been looking at BCM. We've been looking at kind of PPM and portfolio management, governance like GRC, governance, regulatory compliance. A federated model. We have a good working federated model with EBS. So which is really those app dev teams. And because they operate in a traditional developer fashion, the engagement, I would just say the requirements definition, the maturity from a development perspective is there, including our business partners who we've created a great relationship with. So of those roughly 30 applications that we've developed, that EBS team initially gets it off the ground. They do all the QA, they do all the requirements definition, they build the application, they do all the testing. Then they pull in the federated teams. The federated teams usually have 1 or 2 ServiceNow developers. And to give everybody some perspective on this, we've got about 25 in the service, central enterprise ServiceNow team. We've got about 70 developers across the bank. So there's a lot of pockets across business lines of developers. So this federated model was really crucial that we expand across the platform because it was good on EBS and we didn't really it wasn't that great, I would say, on the platform and service catalog side. It's always a struggle. I asked that we expand this federated program across the entire ServiceNow platform, as well as to some of my other enablement teams. Technical performance caused by steady growth. So those health assessments that Ryan mentioned earlier were really crucial. We really saw a lot of value out of the gate with those. Technical complexity around the upgrades development, that's still a challenge. Clone downs and things, we're so far into, as the platform grows, clone downs get to be more and more difficult thing to do with each of our upgrades. So we're getting there, we're chipping away at this, but some of this complexity is not an overnight fix. It's going to take us probably 6 to 12 months to get to. And then governance, lack of cohesive enterprise governance, both strategic and tactical. That is probably one of the biggest factors that I had when I came into the bank that I wanted to get my arms around. One of the first things that we did is spend about 2 or 3 months building roadmaps for each of my teams. So as we built those roadmaps, we quickly determined that we didn't have a good governance and operating model for the platform. And the other thing too is, this is particular to M&T, but our enterprise architecture structure was light. We used to have a good EA layer a few years ago. That kind of got changed up with some leadership changes, and it's been a struggle to get that kind of support. So we had to build EA into each of our teams. And that was a big deciding factor with Impact. And then ServiceNow Knowledge. There's a lot that we want to do with our KBs. We want to build them out more as kind of YouTube type videos. So that's the next evolution that we'll be doing in 2024, is to expand on that knowledge for our service desk. Our service desk is outsourced today, but we have M&T folks that really manage all of that. So they're trying to simplify that kind of user experience at the service desk. Okay, you can move on, Ryan. Here's some of the here's some of the components, some of the, strategies that drove us toward, expanding the ServiceNow ecosystem. EGRC, so our regulatory and compliance and governance. Move to the cloud, as I mentioned, our cloud first strategy, and service catalog. Yeah, I know we've got that one, and actually the one at the top. I'll just speak to both of those, but we just built we call it Get It, which is our request process. We just built a Get It request for cloud. We've got lots of those, right? Hundreds of requests, but we just built our first kind of streamlined cloud Get It request, which sounds simple, but it's a lot more complex because our move to the cloud was also, how do we look at 25 plus years of the way that we've been handling process at the bank and change it completely when we moved to the cloud. So it wasn't just migration of workloads. It was looking at how do we do business? How do we streamline? How do we automate as much as possible? I mentioned earlier about CSM and the App Engine. Those were components that were prior to our contract upgrade to FSO. The next bubble down was the main engine that we use for our app dev team. The federated program I've already spoken to. And then ITOM, one thing, we just implemented ITOM last fall into Q1 of this year. ITOM is a big deal for us right now because our command center, we used a product called BMC TrueSight, and I'll try not to make this a product bash, but we had struggles with it the last few years. And so we decided to create or use the ITOM module and the ACC agent as a central ingest and a console, a single pane of glass, if you will, for the command center. We've got a lot of different monitoring tools, Dynatrace, Live Action, Thousand Eyes. We use Elastic and Kibana and a lot of different tools, but they all have to feed into a central console. And the ITOM agent was a natural fit because, or ITOM is a product, because we could not only ingest all of that data, but we could create correlation rules that we could take actions against, either for auto escalation, for auto incident creation, many other things that allow us to suppress different alerts that come in if there's a certain condition, like a backup fails or something, but it's recreated. If there's automation behind it, we can suppress that. So some very cool options that we had with ITOM. Okay, Ryan. All right, here's a little overview of what I kind of been speaking to since I started. We started in Q4 of 2022 in September, completing the purchase of Impact. And by the way, it's an interesting story because I wasn't long with the bank when we had to renew our 3-year contract with Impact, with ServiceNow, where we decided to go from this a la carte licensing model across to, some of these kind of pro versions and bundled packages. We did a deep analysis on this, honestly, for months and months. And then in the last couple of weeks, really kind of packaged the whole thing up and pushed it through. But at the 11th hour, we decided to add Impact. We were hearing it from the sales teams, and we were like, we're not sure. We've got a pretty strong team. We felt pretty good about it. But a lot of those factors that I mentioned, not having a good enterprise architecture structure, where I wanted to see governance and operating models. I wanted to see a roadmap from a best practice perspective from ServiceNow. I think some of our struggles are, and many of you may experience this, is that you have strong team members that know the platform and certain modules in the platform. But unless you've got a good architecture team that really is solid in that space, often you struggle with what is our best practice approach, because you're basing it on everyone's experience in the platform. And one person could have 20 years with a company and another one could have 5 companies in that 20 years and have a broader level of a range of experience. And all of those things play into the way that you roadmap and set up some of these governance and operating structures. So literally at the 11th hour, my team gave me a lot of that input, what I had found at the bank, and we decided to just go ahead with Impact. We went through readiness assessments. I think the positive, I was pleasantly surprised. I've worked with consultants and outsourcing and contracting for many, many years. And honestly, it's often lukewarm. I feel like, sometimes there's a lot of promises made up front, and then there's very little delivery, and you have to push these folks to drive against your timelines that you may have within your own business. This was really a good. I've told the whole impact team it was awesome out of the gate. Within 2 weeks, we already had ready assessments lined up. We started, kind of weekly cadence so we could start getting things on the docket of where our priorities were, both strategic and tactical, all the way down to different support issues that we were having at the time. So we started the health assessments. We quickly got, the health assessment feedback. Since then, we've also done CMDB, some other assessments along the way. We had operational support reviews. We went through training strategy that, we've got a impact kind of training coordinator that helps us utilize the training that we had. Prior to this, we used training credits prior to the new contract. And so when we basically got, unlimited online training, it was a game changer for us, because then we could expand that offering and sell that out to a lot of our federated partners that wanted to know more about, get more involved with ServiceNow. And I think that's one of the biggest factors as well, is that a lot of our strategic partners, business lines that wanted to engage more, we didn't have the offerings to really be able to help them. Now we can just hand some of this stuff over to these guys, and they can go and train on their own and build up their own federated teams as they see fit. The value blueprinting was also a big piece. This is a whole framework around this business strategy to value. And some of you, I think, can fit into the textbook of this. Not everyone. We weren't really one. I think we took components of the value blueprints and said, okay, this fits into our business strategy, and this is how this, gives value to us. And some of these others are political or strategic that don't fit into your model. We had design reviews. I mentioned the governance and operating model, capability mapping. So we started mapping out what are our resources, what capabilities, how well can we deliver today, what's a best practice on staffing some of these certain areas. So ServiceNow will give you kind of a roadmap for any of that stuff as well. And then the architecture blueprints that I spoke to a little bit earlier.
All right.
And actually, can you go back a slide, Ryan?
Absolutely, go for it.
Yeah, I missed strategic roadmap. Sorry, I had my video up on my screen. Strategic roadmap is where we're at today. I mentioned earlier, we have our own roadmaps. We build our roadmaps. We use OKRs. We have KPIs that we do regularly for our CIO. But those are kind of homegrown, right? And they're good. They're good for us to apply, but ServiceNow is actually going to help us create our own strategic roadmap, aligning these elements we spoke about earlier, business value, the strategy, and so we can better align our existing roadmaps and add some of these factors into them. Okay. This is a very busy slide. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail. This is the heart of the M&T Bank's governance and operating model. This comes out of a deck, like 114 slide deck, which is crazy. There's a lot of content in there, but to me, we narrowed this down to about a dozen slides, this being the heart of it. So this, if you look at some of the, dotted line boxes, the executive steering, the ServiceNow leadership, and the ServiceNow technical governance, these are existing meetings that we have today that we incorporated into this model. So this started off as a model. At the end of it, I said, I want this model to be functional, right? If you're going to provide an operating model, it needs to exist. These meetings need to be taking place. And so I can share it with my peers, our senior leadership, and other partners so they understand how we operate. And this is where we ended up. So if you kind of start in the left-hand side, you can see ideas and new demand go into these different functions. And by the way, these green boxes list, kind of functional areas, the center of excellence, if you will, but they could be people that are wearing multiple hats. So it doesn't translate to a body. It's more of a function. So we have demand coming in from there. We have demand also coming in from executive steering, so more strategic, prioritized business objectives feed into this top section. And then also from this, there's a separate EBS demand board that you can see down in the bottom left. That's focused on, again, just the app dev, all of our development teams that have more of a direct line than some of the business lines for customer-facing application development. From those, business engagement, delivery, strategy, platform architecture, and innovation, those then flow down into our leadership. We have a ServiceNow leadership where we cover a lot of topics in leadership, but this, and by the way, this is fairly new, only a couple of months old, but these higher level executive steering and new demands, priority demands, feed into leadership so we can talk about them and agree as a team. And when we say leadership, it's anywhere from managers to product owners to scrum masters, the folks that are leading and executing across our teams. Goes through leadership. And then there's a technical governance. We call them different S levels. We have kind of S1s through S4s. This is kind of a mid-level technical governance team where some of the technical teams meet, discuss what some of their demands are. And this could be a roadmap alignment. So for instance, end user computing would be one of these in an S2. When our teams meet, have an S2 with the EUC teams, they come away with a list of priorities that they have for their roadmaps, and they can feed into that whole demand process. The last section down in the lower right are really all of the kind of the demand board teams. These are the teams that are the most closely involved with the platform, and some of them are the platform, right? We have the platform and the service catalog team. The ITOM team is actually part of my enterprise monitoring. So the monitoring team now manages a lot of that ITOM product as it relates to ingest of all of our alerting. And then the cybersecurity ops, we have the security incident response module. So cybersecurity is pretty tightly tied in with that. Okay, next slide. So opportunities. I mentioned a few of these bullets, so I'll just kind of skim over them. For the M&T tech side, better defined operating model, which I talked a lot about, work closely with the business and stakeholders to identify business value. This is always an ongoing challenge. Maintain alignment between strategy and tactical. This is also a struggle I'm sure a lot of you have to deal with. How do you develop strategy? How do you implement things that come from strategy meetings, but yet align them with day-to-day tactical needs and priorities? Maintain a cohesive, well-documented governance, regularly assess talent and needs. Talent is something that we do pretty extensively here at the bank, 4 times a year for our tech teams. So it's assessed both for kind of performance and talent, a couple of times each a year. And then instance housekeeping. This is a big one that feeds into this next area, proactive monitoring and notification. And the instance observer best practices. I'd say one of the challenges that we've had is our instance health and getting better monitoring and notification in place that feeds in through our command center. The ServiceNow platform has been kind of treated outside as a SaaS product. And so when things, when we had failures or anomalies come up or instance health performance problems, we would, we would open a case, we would work with ServiceNow support and we'd work it that way. But the command center often, which is 24/7 here, wouldn't know something happened to the platform. And then I would get a call from one of the stakeholders saying, hey, do you know this was down or was slow running for the last couple of hours. So we had a few of those cases earlier this year. And so one of the areas that we went back on Impact and said, hey, let's come up with a better, can you do some best practice baselining for Instance Observer? How should we configure it? Because there's a lot of different alerting options and triggers and things that can be set up. So we asked them to guide us through that. And they've set up some sessions for that. And then the advanced support, we talked quite a bit about instance assessment versus health assessment. They are treated separately. The health assessment is part of Impact. Instance assessment is really part of the support function of Impact. And so we've been focused most recently on instance. Review of customer incident process, integrate ServiceNow and customer support integration. And then advanced personal solutioning. We've had some of those come up. We just recently did an executive briefing with some of our stakeholders with ServiceNow. And some of the things spin out of that. As a matter of fact, I've been working to glue together the Impact team with a lot of our sales teams because it is a newer offering from ServiceNow. As a customer, I was like, if we have an executive briefing, we need to have some of the Impact guys that are in there, right? Because they're actively working some of our issues. And so I want to tell that story and not just look at a future, sales opportunity. Okay, Ryan.
All right. Well, Kevin,
Are we done? Are we there?
Yeah, I think we're there, Kevin. Yeah. No, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's quite a powerful one. And what we'd like to do is open up to the audience and see if there are any questions that we can answer live for you. So Danny, I'm not sure if we have questions that have trickled through in the session, but would you mind teeing them up for us?
Yeah, absolutely. We have had a couple questions roll through, so I'll ask you guys those. And in the meantime, if anyone has questions that pop into their head, throw them in the Q&A chat and we will answer them live. All right, you guys. So our first question is, what support does ServiceNow provide in creating this model? So blueprints, health scan, all that stuff. What kind of service level does the customer need to provide in order to get this level of support? So maybe Kevin, you can speak to your level of involvement and working with the Impact Squad. I know you touched on it, but this question.
Sorry, that's a great question, Cheryl. I will tell you that's a struggle because as soon as Impact identifies key areas, it comes back to you, right? So I think part of what we've had to get adjusted to as well is saying, okay, how much can we actually work? Because let's say operating in governance or the federated model, for instance, there's improvements that come away as suggestions. Okay, now we've got to roll it out. We've got to communicate it with folks. Maybe there's a new implementation. Some of the ITOM things that we had as part of our Impact Squad review, they'll come away with some best practice. Now we have to implement it. So I think that is something that you need to consider when you take on the Impact program, is that it's not all one way, right? It's not a consulting group where you're just handing over the work to them. So they're often giving you the recommendations, but you have to do the work unless you consult with ServiceNow. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that was great, Kevin. And we just had another one pop in. And this is a really interesting question around how were you able to initially quantify the value add of selecting Impact? And then in hindsight, how were you able to quantify the value add?
Yeah, that's another good question. Initially, we were able to provide the value add. First of all, my executive VP is he's done this a long time and he's had the ServiceNow platform. He also knows the bank. So part of it was our current situation, if you will, that I spoke to earlier. The lack of kind of an EA function, the lack of, he wanted to help promote the platform, but he knew that we struggled with some of the resources internally, not only within our own team, but on other outside teams that could help us get there. So that value was more around improve support, right? Improve visibility, which is observability, visibility are two big factors here at the bank. How do we How do we improve on where we see SEVs, incidents? How do we improve the exposure of the platform? So there were a lot of different, as we looked at value blueprinting, the road mapping, we went through I went through a lot of those same elements with him, and he was in full support of it. I know that can vary from leader to leader, but that really helped us. In hindsight, I would quantify the value today very similarly. This is one of the reasons I'm speaking today. I think it's been solid along the way, and it isn't a consulting engagement that starts and ends. So it's not like you go a quarter and then all of a sudden you're like, oh gosh, we were just getting our feet wet with this. We're ready to move forward with some of these things. We have an ongoing weekly meeting. It just keeps getting added. We have this over a 3-year contract. And so we just keep going. We just keep chipping away at these things. And to me, that's a lot of the value, is that it's so much better than a consulting engagement that you would have with a partner that would help you solve 2 or 3 individual kind of priority issues that you may have.
Thank you so much, Kevin. The questions are rolling in now. You're a popular guy, so I have a couple more for you.
I guess I should be quiet to run out of time. Do you want me to go down the list? So Cheryl,
Yeah.
What areas of the business do you engage when implementing Impact? Right now, we engage the ones that are the most closely plugged in with a module. So for instance, cyber. So the cyber ops team, as a matter of fact, cyber ops, give you a little history there, kind of help you understand the engagement. They engaged with CDW to implement the security incident response module, and they left them kind of short. It was just as I mentioned earlier. They helped with the implementation, but they could never get it off the ground because they didn't have the resourcing and they didn't have kind of a best practice approach. So we engage with Impact, and we engage with the sales team and professional services from ServiceNow too, to see if they need a little help until they can cross-train some of their folks. So they're a good example of one that we plugged right in with Impact. We've also had disaster recovery and business continuity, and some of our audit teams plug into the BCM module and portfolio management. We've done some demos with those. Also, my team is called Service Delivery Engineering. I partner very closely with a person that manages service delivery operations, which is incident, problem, change, release, DR, command center, some of our ATMs, and a lot of miscellaneous things, but really the front end command center view, if you will, the organization. So they're looking at DevOps change velocity, and I'm also partnering with some other teams in the cloud area that want to create pipelines and using some of the ServiceNow tools. So we've allowed them access as well. So that's how we've gotten up to the 50 plus. Let's see. Adnan, did you get any specific use cases or modules from ServiceNow that are specific to banks, and how about your regulations and security impact? So I just spoke a little bit about security incident response. That's specific to just cybersecurity. It's how they're managing incident response. For the other modules, I'd say the one that stands out is FSO. So the financial services operations module that I don't want to say replaced, but supplemented CSM previously, which was customer service focused, has like 1,200 templates in it that are all FI related. So you don't have to go and do this extensive requirements definition to build out an application. You can take existing templates, make some small modifications, and the speed to market is there. So that was a big uplift for us when we upgraded the contract.
And Kevin, do you get specific direction from your impact squad on, the FSO module? Like, do we bring the expertise to the table to help with that? I think also too as a part of Anand's question.
Yep, we sure have. Elizabeth Canis and my team. And by the way, if any of you went to Knowledge this year, Elizabeth spoke probably with a lot of these slides as well at Knowledge. Elizabeth manages that EBS team, and she's fantastic. She worked at KeyBank for many years and ran the whole ServiceNow platform and the program, including app dev. Now she's really focused on FSO. So she's brought a lot of these questions forward, as well as helped drive a lot of our federated training. We have specific requirements, minimum requirements that we have for federated teams. So in other words, if you're going to be a federated team and hire a ServiceNow developer, you have to go through these 4 training sessions, and you need to pass them as a prerequisite before we kind of give you any of that, development access.
Great, Kevin. Well, thank you so much. I don't believe there are any other questions. And, this was a phenomenal session. We really do appreciate you coming on board, Kevin, and sharing your story with our attendees. So everyone, thank you so much for attending today's session. Again, please, you'll find the recording of the session out in our Impact Community Forum. And as well as please, visit our new, we have a new microsite on our .com. And also wanted to just share with you too, that we have 2 upcoming webinars with Accenture as well as Northwestern Mutual. So again, thank you so much. Please provide us feedback on your experience today. We want to make sure that we're continually providing value to you because you're spending your valuable time with us. We want to make sure we're delivering that back to you. So thank you again. Have a great rest of your Wednesdays. And Kevin, again, thank you for the partnership. Really do appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.